The global economic situation shows that financial systems, specifically the banking sector, are still highly exposed to systematic risk, with expectations that growth will turn negatively due to COVID-19 pandemic. The financial crisis caused by this pandemic become one of the most dangerous financial crises that the world.
Jamila, we cannot hear you and we cannot see your slides.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we cannot see your slides.
Can you see me now? Hello?
Yes, we can see the slides right now.
Okay, so I can start again or what?
Could you please, start again?
Start again? Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I've got a limited time, so I want to focus on a particular dimensions of my research of the effect of macroprudential regulation on banks' profitability during financial crisis. The global economic situation shows that the financial system, specifically the banking sector, are still highly exposed to systematic risk, with expectations that growth will turn negatively due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The financial crisis caused by this pandemic becomes one of the most dangerous financial crises that the world witnessed in the last 100 years. That started by Great Depressions in 1932 and by the COVID-19 pandemic. The last financial crisis have raised the question about the effectiveness of the existing macroprudential regulation of banking sector, as many believe that such regulation are not sufficient to protect the sector from shocks and introduce the need for further inward-looking and new regulation instruments. In Jordan, banks played a major role in the economic developments. The bank regulator, Central Bank of Jordan, aims to ensure financial stability through its policies, including prudential regulation instruments with a high monitor and control banks' key performance indicators affected by systematic and unsystematic risk. Examples for such KPIs: profitability, liquidity, non-performing loans, and credit growth. Many countries are still facing serious pressure and problems of banks' failure caused by crisis. Attention is needed for more appropriate regulation instruments to improve the performance of banks and their contribution in financial systems. Despite the fact that prudential regulation have been in place to help central bank in regulating the banking practices in Jordan, the problem of facing low profitability growth rate during financial crisis have continued to be one of major concerns. As a result, much attention is required for finding appropriate ways to improve the performance of banking system. Banking sector is a key performer with a special role in the financial system. Banks' profitability evaluates the quality of banks' income by reflect the sources, strengths, and levels of earnings, and banks' ability to accumulate necessary capital to support ongoing banks' operation. The previous performance indicators can be organized and developed through micro and macroprudential regulation instruments put in place by central banks, which play the main role in reducing risk and bank failures during economic crisis. This study contributes to the current financial economic literature by providing an evidence on the effect of macroprudential regulation instruments imposed by central bank on profitability in Jordan, based on a panel data analysis covering 19 years period from 2000 to 2018. The general objective of this research was to investigate the effectiveness of Central Bank of Jordan macroprudential regulation instruments and the performance of Jordanian banking sector. Its specific objective is to investigate the effect of central bank macroprudential regulation instruments on bank profitability. The main hypothesis of the study as follows. Each stress testing instrument does not have effect on Jordanian banking sector profitability. Loan-to-value ratio does not have effect on Jordanian banking sector profitability, liquidity, and credit risk. Capital adequacy ratio does not have an effect on Jordanian banking sector profitability. Leverage ratio does not have effect on Jordanian banking sector profitability, liquidity, and credit risk. The study estimates the dependent variable return on asset as an indicator of income. It is a ratio of net income to total asset. The study is employed a dummy variable asset stress testing as an important risk management macroprudential instrument that is used by banks as a part of their internal risk management and through the Basel II capital adequacy framework. The independent variables, capital adequacy ratio, loan-to-value ratio, and leverage ratio are proxy for macroprudential regulation instrument. The study is also controlled for business cycle by including GDP growth as a macroeconomic indicator, usually developed in line with the business cycle. The regression model are estimated as follows. The descriptive statistics of the data are provided in table 4.1 and 4.2. The average return on asset of banking sector in Jordan witnessed a sharp decrease during the period from 2001 to 2003, reached 7% in 2003. This negative value was attributed to increase in the bank size of Arab Bank and poor performance for 4 banks in Jordan: the Industrial Development Bank, the Jordan National Bank, and Jordan Investment and Finance Bank. That means the performance of individual banks affects the performance of the sector and show the importance of macroprudential regulation to keep financial system stability. Another obvious drop occurred at the end of 2009 to reach 1.1%, followed a downturn trend in 2010 because of the repercussion of the global financial crisis, the Euro sovereign debt crisis, and the Arab Spring, and their impact on the performance of foreign branches of Jordanian banks. The estimated return on asset fully modified ordinary least squares regression model as follows. From the above regression model holding all other factors constant, return on asset measured by the efficiency and effective implementation of macroprudential regulation instruments from their corresponding predictors value probability were equal or below 5%. The sample overall regression result of return on assets show that leverage, loan-to-value, and dummy variable stress testing are statistically significant with positive coefficient sign. On the other hand, a negative relationship declared by negative coefficient sign between return on asset with capital adequacy ratio and GDP growth rate. Similar to study result Tobak and Talo 2017, suggested that the capital adequacy ratio have a negative effect on bank return on asset and return on equity by using a sample of Turkish banks for the period from 2005 to 2015. The study rejects the null hypothesis of the effect of leverage, loan-to-value, and stress testing in return on assets. On the other hand, the result showed that the capital adequacy ratio had insignificant impact on bank return on assets on both sectors, so failed to reject the null hypothesis. The reason stand behind this that banks' capital adequacy ratio during the study period higher than the percentage decided by Central Bank of Jordan and Basel Committee. While Basel Committee requires banks to hold a higher liquidity ratios along with higher capital ratio, the above finding of negative relationship between capital adequacy ratio and banks' profitability suggests that imposing higher capital ratios may have a negative effect on the efficiency and the profitability of highly liquid banks. In addition to that, leverage and stress testing had slight positive significant impact. The highest effect from leverage increased the bank profitability by supplying bank with more outsources of funds. Both stress testing and loan-to-value reduce credit risk and non-performing loans. That leads to increase in return on assets, but it is important to clarify that the effect of this instrument was slight and should improve to enhance bank profitability. The descriptive analysis of the study have revealed that macroprudential regulation instruments are success in keep the stability of banking sector profitability. The sample overall regulation result of return on assets shows the leverage, loan-to-value, and dummy variable are statistically significant. On the other hand, a negative relationship cleared by negative coefficient side between return on asset and capital adequacy ratio and GDP growth. The result generated from regression of analysis stress testing also showed a slight weak significant effect on banks' return on assets. Capital adequacy ratio had no significant effect, indicating that a good number of banks in Jordan maintain capital adequacy ratio higher than the minimum limit required by the Central Bank and Basel Committee requirements. COVID-19 economic crisis came up by the end of 2019. This crisis has unspecified economic impact due to the spread of coronavirus and inability to control its spread. And it is expected to be the worst crisis that the global economy will face. Despite the problem facing banks in Jordan, the central bank taking a precautionary measures such as delaying and restructuring the installments of credit facilities and requested banks to grant small, medium, and large companies loans at a reduced interest rate of 2%. On the other side, the central bank has reduced the required reserve to 5% and lent banks at a zero interest rate at a reduced interest rate. However, these measures were not sufficient to protect banks from the risk of the crisis, and the performance of banks declined in 2020. But in general, Jordanian banks have a proper level of gearing against future economic crises. The current CBJ micro and macroprudential instruments are traditional. They should be more updated in a way to enhance financial stability to can reduce banking sector exposure to financial crisis. The CBJ also should review a cost of micro and macroprudential regulation instruments implementations for banks in a relation to the benefits from its implementation. This can be achieved by developing prudential regulation instruments taking into consideration the economic conditions in Jordan. This improvement may include deregulation of monetary policy and introducing microprudential and macroprudential regulation instruments related to the profit recognition measurement. This may help banks to increase the profitability and increase hedge against shocks by reducing non-performing loans and keep sufficient levels of liquidity. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamila. Any questions?
Thank you for listening. I will be more than happy to answer any questions. Anybody can send to me by email or Zoom or my account in that conference.
Thank you, Jamila. I think there is no question.
Thank you.
I think we should obey the line in the email. We should obey the list in the email. So we should continue with Umut Uyan Hocam. Then if Ali Demir arrives, he will continue. Then it's my turn. And lastly, the Gökhan Can Hocam. So Umut Hocam, it's your turn. Jamila, could you please unshare your slides so Umut Hocam can share his slides and he can start?
Okay.
Do I have to wait Jamila to unshare her slides?
Umut Hocam, I think you are able to share, right?
Okay, I'm trying to share it. Do you guys see my slide?
It's okay.
Options. Yes, now I can see your slides.
Okay, I will try again.
At the top, there is view options. If we choose, no, what happened?
What happened? I don't know. Do you guys hear me, by the way?
Yes, I hear.
I'm trying to share my slides.
It's okay.
Hocam, we cannot see your slides.
I don't know why.
Unutucu gitti.
Is it okay now?
Hocam, we cannot see the slides. Umut Hocam.
Yeah, I see. I'm trying to share my slides, but there is a problem, I think.
Maybe you can send the chat box to me. I can
Jamila,
share.
you again started to share your slides.
Yes.
Please
I share my
unshare them.
slides.
Please unshare them.
Umut Hocam, can you share?
I'm trying to share it, but there's a problem, I think, with the problem.
Maybe you
With
can
the program.
send the chat box. Or I can give you
Yes, I'm trying to send you, but the problem is do I have a chance to share it? I really cannot share my slides.
Hocam, I think now you can because Jamila has stopped sharing. Now you can.
Yeah, I will just try again. Is it okay now?
We are unable to see them. I cannot see them. Hocam, there is an email address there. They say that if you send the slides there, they can share them for you.
Okay, I'm just trying to send it via messages. Yeah, I sent it. If you guys have a chance to open the slides, maybe I can start the presentation because it doesn't work. Sharing doesn't work. I think you received all my slides. Yeah, now I can see my slides, but the problem is how can I just go through the slides, you know? Anyway, maybe
Değerli hocam, siz izin verdikçe ben sizin için devam edeyim slide isterseniz. Siz geç dedikçe ben geçeyim.
yani ben evet arada bir geç derim, o zaman siz de geçebilirseniz sevinirim
Tamam,
hocam. Sağ olun.
teşekkürler.
Çok teşekkür ederim hocam. Now I'm just starting. Now I'm going to present my study, which is called A Study Designed to Investigate the Impacts of Traditional Discourses on Team-Level Knowledge Sharing. Could you please just carry on? As you know, knowledge is the most critical input of innovation, has become essential, directing organizational strategies, and so to compete in the market effectively. Sorry. However, both individual and institutional barriers make knowledge management practices difficult within an organization. Considering that knowledge is a context-embedded phenomenon, it's possible to say that both organizational culture and national culture play a critical role in knowledge management practices. As you can see from the figure, Paulen suggests that both national culture and organizational culture directly related with knowledge articulation. Could you please carry on with the slides?
Hocam yetkiyi size de verdim. Siz de tıklarsanız değişecek.
Sorry. Geçin hocam. This research was designed to examine the effect of language, which is dimension of national culture, on knowledge articulation within organizations. The main assumption of the research is that traditional discourses can create obstacles to knowledge sharing practices. To put it more clearly, several hidden assumptions and therefore cognitive barriers may arise who are exposed to such discourses. At this point, traditional discourses such as "do not invent us," "smart e-pens," "do not stand out," and so on, that we often hear or use in our daily life can negatively affect intra-organizational knowledge sharing. Geçelim. In this sense, the main purpose of the current research is to understand whether certain traditional discourses that have long been established in the national language constitute barriers to knowledge sharing practices. Knowledge management studies mainly focused on organizational culture, and yet national cultures that shape the perspective of individuals have been neglected. Additionally, there is no single study examining the effect of language on knowledge sharing. The main reason for this is that such traditional discourses may not be common in all cultures. In this respect, the research is expected to contribute to literature in terms of examining the impacts of national language, more specifically, traditional discourses for the first time. The idea that language shaped the reality is the assumption of often acknowledged in social psychology studies. Similar to those, this study adopts a social constructivist perspective, which claims the creation of jointly constructed understanding of the world that forged the basis for shared assumptions about reality. As you can see from the research model, we have traditional discourses, which is assumed to create hidden assumptions in cognitive side of the individual. We have 4 hidden assumptions we observed: the assumption of being ignored, the assumption of not meeting new expectation, the assumption of being nonsense, the assumption of conflict with the team members. And these hidden assumptions are expected to create social conformity, and the social conformity probably negatively affect attitudes towards knowledge sharing. The current study is designed as a quality one. The data for this study will be collected from the participants by adopting a quasi-experimental design. The experiment is planned to be carried out in telecommunication service provider company operating in Turkey. Participants will be notified that they are in an application development competition where they will be compete as a group. Participants who will be selected according to different demographic characteristics will be observed in 4 different groups. As you can see here, we designed 4 different types of groups in our experiment. The type 1, the group with no manipulation. Type 2, the group with 1 person, probably the team leader, who attempt to manipulate the group. Type 3, the group with 1 manipulator and 1 supporter of the manipulator. And type 4, the majority of the group tries to manipulate the minority of the rest. The findings will be tried to be interpreted by evaluating new ideas in both quantities and the qualities requested from the participants. The current research design aims to understand whether elements of the national languages stimulates social cohesion or group thinking, and therefore whether it creates obstacles to creating knowledge sharing. Unlike priors, the current one is promising since it examines knowledge sharing practices from a wider perspective. The fact that the findings to be obtained are in line with the predicted ones will also be a wake-up call for individual organizations and even society as a whole. Thank you for your valuable contributions. Any question if you have?
Hocam, how you are going to collect the data?
We're going to try to design an experiment. Like, as you know, we have Türk Telekom, Turkcell, and other
you will call
service companies.
People, right?
Yeah, we're going to set an experiment. So we will tell them there is a competition, like application development competition over there. And we will choose different people, different groups, four groups, as I said before, 4 groups. And then we will try to expose them traditional discourses such as icat çıkarma in Turkish. I'm sorry for the Turkish, but this is not common other cultures. Like we will say, for example, group leaders always trying to say bize icat çıkarma or başımıza alim olacak, like traditional discourses. And I think we suppose that these traditional discourses blocks the knowledge sharing in the companies. Because they create some kind of hidden assumption, and we are trying to design this kind of study.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hocam.
You're welcome. Any question? Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you, Hocam.
Thank you.
Is Ali Demir here? I think he is not. Now it's my turn. Let me try to share my slides. If I cannot, I will also send them via email.
Okay.
Can you see them now?
Yes, we can see. Go ahead.
Okay. Then I can start. This study is on hedonic coalition formation games. This study is a theoretical study from game theory area. And the title is Hedonic Coalition Formation Games, Characterization of a Course Table Partition Under Preference Profile Restrictions. It is a joint study with Mehmet Karakaya from İzmir Katip Çelebi University. I'm going to first talk about hedonic coalition formation games. Then I'm going to talk about some equilibrium concepts like core stability, internal stability, and efficiency concept called Pareto optimality. I'm going to try to introduce all of these. And then I'm going to talk about our aim. We are going to try to characterize core stability using internal stability and Pareto optimality. For this reason, we worked in these domains. We worked under 6 different domains, and we have shown that in none of these domains characterization is possible. So we have an impossibility result. None of these conditions are sufficient to provide a characterization. So let's start with hedonic coalition formation. In many real-life instances, people prefer to act in group rather than staying alone. For example, people form friendship groups, or faculty members in a university form research groups, or some people come together and they form teams or clubs, or some of them come together and they have some organizations. So in many instances of daily life, we face with such situations. In game theory, the behavior of people, their behavior of being in coalitions or in teams rather than staying alone, this can be modeled using hedonic coalition formation games. In a hedonic coalition formation game, we have finite number of players, and we have a list of players' preferences such that each player's preference relation strictly ranks the coalitions she is a member of. So the set of players, we have a finite set of players, and a non-empty subset of the set of players is called a coalition. And we suppose that every player, every agent, every individual has preferences over the coalitions she would like to be a part in. Then she ranks these coalitions, and the list of agents' preferences and the finite set of agents, that one constitutes the hedonic coalition formation game. Let me quickly introduce the formal model. Capital N will going to denote the finite set of agents or players. I'm going to use the words agents, players, individuals interchangeably, but they are all equal. Capital N will denote the set of agents. Any non-empty subset of H is called a coalition of N, and we generally denote the coalitions with capital H or capital S. And we denote the agents using small letters I, J, or K. This symbol, sigma I, denotes all the coalitions of the set of agents that contain agent I. And every agent ranks the coalition in that set strictly. The outcome of a hedonic coalition formation game is partitioning the set of agents into disjoint coalitions. For example, if the set of agents consists of agents 1, 2, 3, and 4, then a partition for this set of agents could be 1, 2 together and 3, 4 together, and we call that kind of structure as a partition. A partition, an outcome of a hedonic game is a partition, and it partitions the set of agents into non-empty coalitions. Now, I would like to talk about the properties of the outcomes of a hedonic game, or properties of a partition. The first condition is called voluntary participation. By voluntary participation, we mean that an individual would like to be in a coalition rather than staying alone. So by pi, we denote an outcome of a hedonic game or a partition. So pi I denotes the unique coalition in the partition containing agent I. Then we say that a partition pi is individual rational for a hedonic game if every agent would like to be in a coalition rather than staying alone. This is called the voluntary participation property. Then we have a most common efficiency concept, Pareto optimality. We say that a partition pi is Pareto optimal for a hedonic game if there exists no other partition pi prime such that every agent becomes weakly better off in the new partition and at least one agent becomes strictly better off in the new partition. In other words, we call Pareto optimality in that way. If some of the agents would like to change their coalition, then there exists at least one agent who gets worse off. This is called Pareto optimality, or the efficiency concept we are going to use. And the third one is course stability. This one is the first equilibrium concept we are interested in. A partition pi for a hedonic game is blocked by a coalition T if every player in the coalition T becomes strictly better off when they leave their current coalition and they form the new coalition T. This is called blocking, and we say that a partition pi is course stable if it cannot be blocked by any coalition T. So if it is impossible for any group of agents to come together and form a new coalition, and by doing this becoming strictly better off, then that partition is called course stable. We have another equilibrium notion which is called internal stability. Internal stability is a weaker notion. It is weaker than course stability. We say that a coalition for a hedonic game is internally stable if there does not exist any non-empty subset of that coalition, any subcoalition of that coalition, such that whenever agents in the subcoalition leave the coalition and become strictly better off. And we say that a partition is internally stable for a hedonic game if every coalition in the partition is internally stable. Course stability is stronger than internal stability and Pareto optimality. We have strict preferences. So course stability implies both of them. And we know that every hedonic game has a partition that is internally stable. This one is proved in the literature. This one is proved by Dimitrov and Sang in 2004 in their social choice and welfare paper. We know that every hedonic game has a partition that is Pareto optimal, but a hedonic game may not have a course stable partition. Then we are interested in the following question. We know that course stability implies both of them, and internal stable and the Pareto optimal coalition structure, internal stable and Pareto optimal partition always exist. So we are interested in the following case. Is it possible to find some domains? Is it possible to find some conditions which are sufficient and under these conditions, is it possible to show that a partition which is internally stable and Pareto optimal is also core stable? So we would like to find the properties which also satisfies the arrow in the opposite direction. So we check 6 conditions which are introduced, which are imposed on preference profile of agents. We firstly check the common ranking property of Farrell and Schochmer. Then we check the top coalition property and weak top coalition property of Banerjee, Konishi, and Sönmez. Then we check the conditions of Bogomonia and Jackson, weak consecutiveness and ordinal balanceness. Then we lastly check pivotal balanceness. And for each of these conditions, we show that it is impossible to show that a partition which is internally stable and Pareto optimal is also core stable. So we provide some examples, and in those examples, we show that there exists a core stable partition, there exists a partition which is internally stable and Pareto optimal, but that internally stable and Pareto optimal partition is not core stable. It is blocked by a coalition. So let me first start with common ranking property. This property is introduced in 1988 by Farrell and Schochmer, and it requires that there is a linear order on the set of all coalitions which coincides with any player's preference ordering over her coalitions. For example, suppose that there is a linear order over coalitions. So we rank the coalitions as agent 1 and 2 together, agent 1 and 3 together, agent 1 and 4 together. Then in the preference list of agent 1, she also ranks the coalitions in that order, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, in that way. Let me provide you an example. Suppose that we have 4 agents and we have this linear ordering. With respect to this linear ordering, we order the coalitions in that way. Firstly, we put the coalition 1 and 3. The agents 1 and 3 are together. Then we put the coalition agent 1 staying alone. Then we put the coalition agents 2 and 3 being together. Then 2, 3, 4 and together, and we continue in this way. Then common ranking property requires that each agent here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, they obey the ordering and they rank their coalitions with respect to that ordering. For example, agent 1 puts 1 to read the top, then 1 follows, then 1, 3, 4 follows, because 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, and 3, 4, they are not the coalitions of agent 1. Only the coalitions of agent 1 includes 1. Similarly, agent 3 firstly puts 1 to read the top, then he puts 2, 3, then 2, 3, 4, 3, 4. We see the ordering. She also obeys. Agent 2 again also obeys. Agent 4 again obeys. So in that hedonic game, we have a unique core stable partition, which is agents 1 and 3 stays together and agents 2 and 4 stay together. But we have another partition. Agent 1 is alone. Agent 2 and 3 are together. Agent 4 is alone. That one is internally stable and Pareto optimal, but this one is not core stable because the coalition 1 and 3 block it. Agents 1 and 3, by coming together, get strictly better off if they are in that partition. So under the common ranking property, it is impossible to characterize core stability using internal stability and Pareto optimality. Let me continue with top coalition properties of Banerjee, Konishi, and Sönmez. They introduce 2 top coalition properties, and they show that each of these properties are sufficient for a hedonic game to have a core stable partition. So under top coalition property or the weak top coalition property, we always have a core stable partition, but we can find a partition which is internal stable and Pareto optimal, but that partition may not be core stable. So what is top coalition property? Suppose that we have a set of agents and head, any subset of agents and head. We say that coalition H, which is a subset of N head, is a top coalition if every player in coalition H prefers coalition H to any other coalition of N head containing herself. And we say that a hedonic game satisfies top coalition property if every non-empty set of players has a top coalition. The following game satisfies top coalition property. For example, in this game, suppose that we have 4 agents and these are the preference list of agents. This game satisfies the top coalition property and the top coalitions of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, and 1, 2 is 1, 2. How we see this? For example, here agents 1 and 2, they put the coalition 1, 2 to top because they prefer 1, 2 to any other subset of this one, that one, that one, that one, including themselves. For example, agent 1 prefers 1, 2 to 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. So he puts 1, 2 above any other subset of this one containing himself. Similarly, agent 2 also behaves in the same way. And the top coalitions of 1, 3, 4, and 1, 3 is 1, 3. 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3 is 2, 3. Top coalitions of 1, 4, 2, 4, and 3, 4 are themselves. Also, the top coalitions of single top coalitions are themselves. And with respect to these top coalitions, we have the following preference list. With respect to that hedonic game, we have a unique core stable partition. In that unique core stable partition, agents 1 and 2 stay together, 3 and 4 stay together. But we have another partition which is 1 and 4 together and 2 and 3 together. This red one, 1, 4, 2, 3, is internal stable and Pareto optimal, but it is not core stable. So under the top coalition property, it is impossible to characterize core stability using internal stability and Pareto optimality. Similarly, this is also the case under weak top coalition property. Weak top coalition property is weaker than top coalition property. So let me introduce it very quickly. Let N bar be any set of players, and let H be any coalition of N bar. We say that coalition H is a weak top coalition of N bar if H is partitioned into subsets as H1, H2 until HL, such that every player, every agent in H1 accepts the coalition H as their top coalition. So they prefer H to any other subset of this N bar. But agents in H2, H3, H4, or the others, they need the cooperation of at least one agent above the coalitions on themselves. For example, agents in H2 need the cooperation of at least one agent in H1 in order to reach a better coalition than H. So this condition is called weak top coalition property. A hedonic game is said to satisfy the weak top coalition property if any non-empty subset of players always has a weak top coalition. This condition is not also sufficient for characterization. Suppose that we have 4 agents And the following preference list, they satisfy the weak top coalition property. For example, the weak top coalition of the ground coalition 1, 2, 3, and 4 is 2 and 4 with the H1, 2, 4. Or the weak top coalition of 1, 2, 3 is 1, 3 with H1, 1, 3. So with respect to these weak top coalitions, we get the following list. Here we have a core stable partition, but we also have another partition, the red one, which is internally stable and Pareto optimal, but it is blocked by a coalition. It is not core stable. We have a unique core stable partition. 1, 3 stays together, 2, 4 stays together. But the red one, 1, 3, and 4 together, 2 alone, that one is internally stable Pareto optimal, but the agents 2 and 4, they can come together and they can block that partition. So it is impossible to characterize core stability using internal stability and Pareto optimality under this condition. We also check the conditions of Bogomolny and Jackson. We check the condition weak consecutiveness and ordinal balancedness. Let me first start with weak consecutiveness. Bogomolny and Jackson introduced that condition in 2002, and they show that this condition is sufficient for the existence of core stability, but we show that it is not sufficient for characterization of core stability using internal stability and Pareto optimality. So let the function f be an ordering of players. Let it be a bijection from the set of agents to the set of agents. Then we say that a coalition is consecutive with respect to an ordering f if, with respect to that ordering, agents I, j, and k are ordered in an increasing order, and if agent I and k are in the coalition H, because j is between these two, j also must be in the coalition. This is the condition of being a consecutive coalition with respect to an ordering. Then we say that a hedonic game is weakly consecutive if there exists an ordering of agents, ordering of players, such that any coalition, such that any partition that is not core stable can be blocked by a set of connected agents. By connected agents, I mean any three agent I, j, and k who satisfies the consecutiveness condition here with respect to an ordering f. This game satisfies weak consecutiveness. We have a core stable partition here, but we have another partition which is internally stable and Pareto optimal, but that partition is not core stable. Here, agent 1 stays alone, 2 and 3 stays together. That one is unique core stable partition, but the red one, agents 1 and 2 together and 3 alone, that one is internally stable and Pareto optimal, but that one is blocked by agents 2 and 3. So it is impossible to characterize core stability using internal stability and Pareto optimality under this condition. The next one, the next condition is ordinal balancedness. It is also introduced by Bogomolny and Jackson in 2002. They show that if a hedonic game satisfies that condition, there always exists a core stable partition. In order to introduce ordinal balancedness, I would like to firstly introduce the condition called balancedness, or what is a balanced family? A collection of coalitions is balanced if for each coalition in the collection there exists a positive weight, and adding positive weight for every player always gives 1. This is the condition of a balanced family. For example, suppose that we have 3 agents, 1, 2, and 3. Then the following coalitions constitute a balanced family. Coalition 1 and 2, where agents 1 and 2 stay together. Coalition 1 and 3, where agents 1 and 3 stay together. Coalition 2, 3, where agents 2 and 3 stay together. This collection of coalitions, this family, it is a balanced family. Whenever there exists a positive weight for each agent here, for example, for coalition 1, 2, the weight is 1/2, 0.5. For coalition 1, 3, the positive weight is 1/2, 0.5. For coalition 2, 3, it is again 1/2, 0.5. And for each coalition and for each agent in that coalition, whenever you add the positive weights, you always find 1. So that collection is a balanced collection. Then what is the condition of ordinal balancedness? A hedonic game is ordinally balanced if for each balanced family of coalitions, there exists a partition such that each player prefers her coalition in the partition to her worst coalition in the balanced family. This one. We show that this condition is not also sufficient for the characterization. This game satisfies the ordinal balancedness condition, and we have a unique core stable partition, which is every agent together. But there is another partition in which 1 and 2 together and 3 stays alone. This one is internally stable and Pareto optimal, but it is not core stable. Agents 2 and 3, they come together. So here 2 leaves 1. Here 3 joins to 2. They construct the new coalition 2, 3, and they block the red partition here. So it is impossible to characterize core stability using internal stability and Pareto optimality when the condition is ordinal balancedness. The last condition we checked, which is imposed on preference profiles, is called pivotal balancedness. That one is another balancedness condition, but it is different than ordinal balancedness. They are independent conditions. That condition is introduced by Ihle in 2007, and he showed that this condition is both necessary and sufficient condition for the existence of a core stable partition. By a necessary and a sufficient condition, we mean that if this condition is satisfied for a hedonic game, there always exists a core stable partition, and whenever there exists a core stable partition for a hedonic game, that hedonic game also satisfies pivotal balancedness condition. This is called a being necessary and a sufficient condition. Let me introduce pivotal balancedness. I first start with the definition of distribution. Then I continue with balanced family again. So let H be a coalition and consider some of its subcoalitions. So choose any coalition H from the set of agents and consider some subcoalitions of H. Some non-empty subcoalitions of H. The collection of all subcoalitions that we construct in this way, it is called a distribution. A hedonic game is called pivotally balanced if for each balanced family with respect to that distribution, there exists a partition that each player prefers her coalition in the partition to her worst coalition in the balanced family with respect to distribution. Now, let me introduce you a game which satisfies pivotal balancedness. this game is pivotally balanced, but because pivotal balancedness condition is independent from ordinal balancedness, we choose the hedonic game, and we would like to show you that they are completely independent. So that one does not satisfy ordinal balancedness. Here we have a unique core stable partition, which is agents 1 and 2 stay together and 3 stays alone. We have another partition, the red one, in which 1 and 3 stay together, but 2 is alone. The red one is internally stable and Pareto optimal, but it is not core stable. The one in which 1 and 2 stays together and 3 is alone, that one is core stable. So again, under this condition, it is impossible to characterize core stability using internal stability and Pareto optimality. Even the preferences are strict. So we work with 6 different conditions. They are all imposed on preference profiles. And we show that under none of these, it is possible to characterize core stability using internal stability and Pareto optimality. So we have a very strong impossibility result. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any question, I would be very happy to answer.
Thank you, John, for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Now, I think Gökhan Hocam, are you here?
Yes.
It's your turn, Hocam. So you can share your slides, Hocam. We are ready to hear you.
Seçkin Hocam, thank you. I'm going to share. Can you see? Can you see my slides?
Yes.
We see the slides, Hocam.
Thank you. Today, I'm going to talk about my work named The Value of Information in a Kernel Duopoly with Fixed Fee Licensing. First, I need to talk about my motivation about information. Big data is used in almost all parts of the economy. The amount of data produced worldwide grow up about 5,000% in 10 years. Firms and public authorities such as central banks collect a large amount of data. So understanding the value of information is crucial. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. A licensing fee is a sum of money paid to another entity for a certain right. As stated by Katz and Shapiro, licensing is a crucial component of behavior in many markets. Kamian and Tauman show that innovators and consumers prefer fixed fee licensing to royalty licensing. Therefore, understanding the value of information in the presence of fixed fee licensing is important. My question is this: how does the fact that firms have better information about demand affect their profits? Does it matter what the source of better information is? I am trying to answer this question in my setup. Actually, I'm going to skip the literature. But I want to say that the value of information depends crucially on the market environment. In my model, there are 2 firms. One firm has non-drastic innovation that lowers cost. It's non-drastic, the firm cannot be a monopoly. Without loss of generality, let's say that first firm as a cost-reducing non-drastic innovation and licenses its innovation to firm 2. Firm 2 can use firm 1's innovation by paying the license fee. It's a fixed amount. In my model, inverse demand function is linear and stochastic in the intercept. In this equation, theta is the about demand uncertainty. Pi is price level of firms. Qi is production level of firms. A is a deterministic variable, and theta is a random variable as a mean of theta bar. Firms cannot observe the realization of the prior theta. Firms cannot see theta, but each firm observe a signal about theta, one private signal and one public signal. Each private signal is the sum of actual demand and additional light noise. And similarly, the public signal is the sum of prior and white noise. We can interpret the public signal as public news about the demand. Again, I'm going to skip them. These are actually common assumptions in the literature. So first, I want to talk about line non-licensing model. I use this model as a reference point for our analysis. In this case, Perman is a cost-reducing non-drastic innovation, and it doesn't license to other firms. So the unit cost of Perman is C minus epsilon, while the unit cost firm 2 is C. In the first stage of this game, firms observe their public and private signals. In the later stage, they choose quantities to maximize their expected profits. Sorry. Now I want to talk about fixed fee licensing model. In this case, Perman is a cost-reducing non-drastic innovation and licenses to the firm 2. In this case, firm 1 and firm 2 as a cost unit cost is C x epsilon. The maximum license fee firm 1 can charge is this equation. Therefore, in the fixed fee licensing model, the expected total income of firm 1 is this. This part is firm 1's profit in fixed fee licensing model, and F denotes the fixed fee. And this part is the expected total income of firm 2. I borrow our licensing structure from Wang's paper. Now I want to talk about my results. As you can see, the partial derivative of expected total income of firm 1 with respect to the precision of its private signals error is positive. Therefore, when one firm receives more precise private information, its expected profit or more accurately, its expected total income increases. Similarly, if the rival firm has more precise private information, its expected total income decreases. This is the other result. If the rival firm has more precise private information, more precise public information increases the expected total income of a firm. However, if a firm has more precise private information than its rival, more precise public information can decrease the expected total income of a firm. Actually, it can increase or decrease. My conclusion, we studied a chronoduopoly where one of the firms as an undrastic cost-reducing innovation and licensed it to the other firm. We studied the private value of public and private information in this setup. I showed that the private value of information is always positive in my setup. However, the private value of public information can be negative. Thank you for listening. Can someone ask a question?
I have a question. You modeled this one as a chronoduopoly game. Have you also considered the Steckelberg version of this game? Because you say that one of the firms has a license and they share this one with the second firm or the rival or whatever, the second firm. So
Sure.
one of the firms has already get in the market. There is a follower firm. Is it possible to model this one as a Steckelberg?
Actually, in my model, there are two firms. The second firm is not follower, but as you said, we can model this as a Steckelberg competition. I don't know what happens. Actually, I don't know.
I see. Okay. I think your firms, two of your firms, they act at the same time. They act
yes,
simultaneously.
it's a simultaneous game.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is Ali Demir and the last speaker here?
No, they are not.
They are not here. Then we can end the session.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
And good evening.